Thank you, Kate, and welcome to Lead with Tempo. I loved your
Thank you for
talk.
having me.
Oh, it's so nice to have you here. I
Thank
really loved your
you.
talk. I've written a book on ops recently, which comes out at the end of the month. So a lot of what you said, I was just smiling at, but I was also thinking about how much more elegantly you'd put things than me. You probably should have written my book instead. I mean, it's also, it was quite validating. No, I don't like that. But it was really good to hear from someone who has been spent a long time kind of in the detail of ops and in the depth of ops. So yeah, it was a super clear explanation of what ops is and how it can help your team as well. So we've got quite a few questions for you. So I'm going to jump straight in.
Great.
My laptop comes back to life. Why does the Mac always decide to go off when you don't want it to? So
as long as it's not doing an update, you're fine.
Yeah, no, it's not doing an update, luckily. So Mel, the first question's from Mel, and she wants to know, do you work with the design teams at Chase UK? And if you do, how do you collaborate with stakeholders from other entities?
Yep, definitely. I mean, I started out in content ops and my role is now CX ops, which CX being our term for design, content, research, voice of customer, which is like customer feedback, and also vulnerable customers as well, because in banking that is a big thing. We make sure that it's more than inclusivity and accessibility. It's like people who might not even know that they have a need, like a gambling problem or something. So it's all of those people. The way that we've found works best is that we come together through platforms and processes, but where we have shared platforms and processes. So I have a sort of a dotted line, the design ops guy. So we work together, but I would still look after mostly the content pieces. But where we have a shared place like Figma, then we both collaborate on the development of that platform. What plugins do we need? How does the process work? How do we make sure that it's a tool for design, not just a tool for designers, would be my answer. So we do tend to, like, design culture and content cultures are slightly different. And despite us working together, I think you need to respect that culture. They're already there. So the design ops guy will work with his team on their development and their personal progress and careers, and some of their internal processes where they don't touch anyone else. But we found that there's much more common ground in things like how does content and design get delivered overall, and also the platforms that we use.
Yeah, definitely. I guess with things I guess it's crucial to work together on some things, like if you're trying to improve ways of working or collaboration, for example, it's kind of vital.
Yeah,
awesome.
But I still think you have to kind of respect the cultures that happen within like design capital D, unless you're really, really tightly integrated as a team. There's always going to be things which people prefer to sort of handle within their own teams.
Yeah, and kind of unique challenges to those disciplines as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, the next question is from James, and he wants to know whether content ops is inherently about scale, or could you just use it sort of for replicating structures across teams, like working on different projects, for example. He says he's specifically thinking about content ops at a consultancy where there might be multiple projects, most of which are not large in and of themselves. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
It's a really interesting question, and I would say that normally content ops is about scale, but in that instance, it's about speed. And you can argue that the scale is coming from doing the same project in multiple places at the same time with different clients. So you might not be scaling up in size so much as in breadth. I would say where you can find a process and document that and know that this has been tested, we know this is a way of working, means when you start with a new client, you can start from a space of, okay, this is how we think things should operate. These are previous areas where we have seen people have difficulties. How do you rate yourself in these areas? How do you see yourselves? Are these difficulties that you have? I mean, a lot of ops is based on the understanding of a business. So yes, you can sort of like take a template and then apply it to other businesses, but in all cases, it won't always fit. So it's more a question of these are the key points of weakness. So, for example, the handover between design and development is often a key fall down piece, or the way that content people and design people work together. Like, how do they get briefed? Do they get briefed together? Those kind of like are weak points frequently across businesses. If you can decide, okay, ask business, do you see these? Where do you see these happening? You can start to look at a pre-existing model and see how you might adapt it.
Yeah, so I guess in that instance, it is about kind of repeating sort of they are structures, I guess, if you look at like something like a brief or repeating kind of methods across teams rather than.
Well, I would emphasise that they're not cookie cutter. I mean, if I wish I could, but there are key points where businesses often have struggle with operations, and handover points being one of the key ones. So those are often the points to like prod and go, so what happens here? How does this happen? Who does what? And understand whether that is something where you can genuinely help a client or not.
Definitely. I think I mean, I guess I was thinking about my own experiences, and like you say, it's not necessarily the cookie cutter, like this just replicate something. It's like replicating the method, like, I don't know, maybe it is a briefing template, but the actual execution of it will be different. But yeah, it's thinking about what are those kind of things that solve those common problems. And that kind of leads me on to another question, actually. I was thinking, to understand how ops can help a particular project or a particular team, you almost need to do a bit of design discovery and understand what are those things that they're struggling with, or what are those things that they need kind of those repeatable frameworks for. And I was just keen to know if you had any practical tips or tactics that you'd employed to help uncover those things where ops can help. Their particular workshops that you favour, or how do you go about that?
I think actually a lot of it starts with, I mean, there's pain point mapping. I think, as I said in my talk, there is pain point mapping, but on top of that, there is almost a cultural reading that has to happen of understanding whether this is painful for you or everyone else, or just you. Often I think where sometimes people can trip up is going, oh my God, this is incredibly painful, we need to fix this. And actually everybody else is like, oh, fine, I'm benefiting from this pain. I don't really want to solve it.
Yeah.
So you can't have a workshop about that. The simple truth of it is because everyone's going to go, I don't see a problem. What problem? All right. So by all means, map if difficulties in the business. But on top of that, you need a second dimension, which is to say, how is this stopping us from achieving our goals? How does this map to business outcomes? And if you can find those areas of crossover, those are the ones where you will have best luck involving other people in terms of handling those. I mean, workshop really is, I mean, I couldn't say there's one that I do that's any more unique than anybody else's. It is really about identifying the problem, coming up with possible solutions, getting people to agree on it, and then implementing it. There's nothing more like jazzy that I bring to it than that. The art is knowing which problems to tackle first, because if you start with one which is, I mean, ideally you'd have one which is painful for everybody and relatively easily solved, but somehow somebody hasn't quite got to that yet. That's the best place to start, down to the really pointy ones, which is where everything sucks for you but nobody cares. And those ones are harder to solve.
Yeah, I saw a pie chart. I think it was Julie Zhu or someone shared on Twitter earlier, and it was like the biggest percentage of time as a leader is convincing people that there is a problem that needs solving.
Totally, I could really agree with that. And they won't agree it's a problem until it's their problem. That's the dreadful thing of it. It's like most of my time is spent reframing things, going, yes, but if we don't do this, then this is going to come and bite you.
This is your problem.
And it's going to bite you personally in about 6 weeks or whatever. And once you realise people that it's going to impact their ability to clock off at 4 o'clock on a Friday, they suddenly are much more invested in you getting it right.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, how will it personally impact them or their job performance? Definitely. We've got a question from Monica, and she would like to know, how do you get buy-in from content teams outside of your own, for example, UX versus marketing, without them feeling that you're encroaching on their space?
The way I frame it is that I do everything around the words. I mean, bear in mind, I used to be a UX writer and I worked in marketing as well. So I know what that feels like. And mostly I frame this as being everything around the words, but not the words themselves. So what I'm really here to do is make spaces in which that creativity can happen, where that creativity is not stymied by a lack of process, where people are not hampered by the systems that they use, where it's not just so hard to get anything done. And that, I think, is pretty universal. And it doesn't impact people's creative ability and the thing that they actually probably came into their jobs to do. I don't think anybody came into UX writing going, I'm going to write an excellent process. No, they came in to write. So it is the ability to write. And what I'm advocating for is better processes and operations that mean that you have more time to do that and less time spent chasing people via email.
Yeah, it's freeing them up to do the actual work, I guess, isn't it?
Do the thing that you're good at that actually makes a difference to you and personally in your job. And if that means that you have to make small changes to your process or go to the odd workshop, you can probably live with that.
Yeah. Okay, one more question from Sinead. She says, we're looking at evangelizing a content tech stack internally and to clients. Any thoughts on this?
I'm quite happy to talk about content tech stacks. They're a subject dear to my heart. I strongly believe in starting with people and processes, because if you start with tech, then it's the tail wagging the dog. And you end up with processes which have been defined by a vendor's view of how your operations should happen rather than your view of how your operations should happen. So I think in evangelizing any tech stack, you have to be able to identify the human problems first. Say, it takes us this long to be able to do things because of our current technology. We want to improve these processes. These are our human pain points. The technology simply allows us to either spend less time using people as slow computers, which is just a waste of human life, right? So if you have something that means that people don't have to work as slow computers, but can actually work in the more creative elements of it, that's a strong argument for getting buy-in. I mean, with any tech stack, there is always the pain of transition. So being able to frame that pain as being tolerable, because you will get these, it will take this amount of time and it will cause this much pain, yes, but then you will get this much reward out of it. All of these things that you currently hate will go away. People are very much more like tolerant of short-term time boxed pain. They know it's coming, but if you can say it's only going to last a certain amount of time and then things will get better, that allows people to mentally start to imagine the future. And actually imagining the future is really important with any kind of change, because it is that mental model shift from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things. And what do I have to do to get across from that, one side of the island to the other, and what bridge do I have to go over? So when evangelizing any tech stack, I would never focus on the features of the tech stack. No one cares. Like literally no one except the people who use it care. If you need to other people outside the business, it's going to solve these pain points. We will get faster, more efficient. We will have more time to work. We will, all of the benefits, and then time box the period where it's going to happen so that people know they have more certainty around how you're going to get from one state to the other state.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's really insightful. I'm sure
Welcome.
Many viewers are probably scribbling furious notes now. So thank you so much for joining us. I believe you're hiring at the moment. You have a lead role, don't you?
If anybody wants to come and be my lead UX writer, we need another one. Yes, it's leading a team working across the Chase app. which is digital banking. It's in the UK. If you are interested at all, please do hit me up and I'll give you all the details. You get to work with me. Yay! Or boo, hopefully yay. But anyway, yes, thank you very much for having me today. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.